This week, pulling back the curtain on the convention business with the man charged with selling Kansas City to the nation. Plus, our reporters dissect the week's top stories. We mark the first anniversary of Ferguson. What has been the local impact? And fighting it out for your signature as dueling groups push to change Kansas City's new minimum wage ordinance. Most of the familiar faces are now gone. What difference will 9 new council members make to the way business gets done at City Hall? And are you willing to pay more in taxes for better parks, transit and libraries? Johnson County ready to vote on its first property tax hike in a decade. Welcome everyone, I'm Nick Haynes. Our reporter roundtable straight ahead. But first, the Kansas City Council recently green-lighted a more than $300 million downtown convention hotel, fulfilling a decades-long dream of some city leaders. Developers say construction on the 800-room Hyatt could begin at the start of next year, and guests could begin checking in sometime in 2018. The man charged with making sure that hotel is booked with convention goers is this man, Ronnie Burt, now marking his first year as the head of Visit KC. That's the new name of the Kansas City's Convention and Visitor Association. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, we can't expect people elsewhere in the country just to happen to pick up a copy of the Kansas City Star or the Business Journal and find out, oh, they're opening a new hotel in Kansas City. Let's bring our business there. So how does that actually work? What is the strategy for attracting new conventions, Ronnie?
Well, exactly. When you have an announcement as exciting as this is, and it's been long awaited, long anticipated, long debated, and now announced, what we've done is we've taken that announcement along the stages that it's been in and pushed it out to our customers through the national trade media. We've pushed it out to our convention customers to let them know what's happening here in Kansas City.
So how does that actually work? Are you working the phones all day long? What are you actually doing?
Absolutely. Part of selling the destination is announcing any new product. So it becomes a part of every phone conversation. So what we did is we pushed out the PR announcement about the hotel back in May when it was first announced at the convention center to over 3,000 customers. What was interesting about that, Nick, is that those customers, we started fielding inquiries already, and that was phase 1 of the announcement. There was like over 20 customers that immediately started inquiring, requesting more information, even looking into dates. And one customer had even inquired into dates as far out as 2024. And that's unprecedented for it to be just a PR announcement that this is what we're doing before the shovel goes in the ground.
So did any of those bites from people, that interest, become confirmations?
Absolutely. So what happened, give you an example, is there was one customer who we weren't even on their radar. And they received that information. They were interested to have more information. They came in for a site visit. Their interest is in 2021. And this hasn't even been announced publicly, so I'm sharing it first with you on this show, that American Association for Laboratory Animal Sciences has selected Kansas City for October of 2021. That's about $4.2 million in economic impact solely because of the announcement of the Convention Center Hotel. So in my circles, when I talk to people, I say, we got to make sure that this happens. We can't flub it up. We already have customers that are ready to confirm.
Isn't it conceivable, though, that this hotel might still not be built, though? I mean, we've now approved it from the City Council point of view, but they still have to find the investors who are still going to go in on this hotel. What if that doesn't happen?
Well, obviously, from my seat, we remain highly optimistic, and you're right. And so it has been approved by the council. The development team is now preparing everything that they need to do to take this to Wall Street and sell the equity of it and close the deal. I would have to imagine that to be this far along, that those hurdles have been measured, and there's a pretty clear indication from the development team that they can get over those hurdles.
We just had in town University of Texas San Antonio economist Hayward Sanders here. He's been a longtime critic of public investment in convention centers. But one of the take-homes of his whole visit was that, cities got to do a lot more than just build a hotel or a convention center, because they have to separate themselves from other communities. That's what makes the difference if they want to bring in visitors. You've been in this job now for just over a year. What are you doing beyond bringing in a convention hotel to actually lure visitors and conventions to the city?
Well, I think it's a good point that Hayworth Sanders has made. And interestingly enough, as I'm very familiar with Hayworth Sanders, have never met him, but knew he was coming to town and actually wanted to sit down and have a conversation with him. What he was suggesting, Kansas City has already been doing for the last decade, is economic development has invested $6.5 billion into the city. And so the way I look at this is that if this were a 10-point scale, generally what happens with convention centers or convention hotels, it generally starts in phase 1. But Kansas City has already been far along in investing into the downtown infrastructure with the Sprint Center, the streetcar, the Power and Light District, the Kauffman Center for Performing Arts. All the new residential development is going on. It's already been happening. So once this project continues to progress forward, I mean, we start over again. We start with the moving forward of this hotel and with new and more economic development to come. So we've already been doing it.
You mentioned just before we started this interview that you're going to be going over to the UK, my own homeland, and you're going to be speaking to travel groups there. So when you go to something like that, do people in the UK get to see advertisements of Kansas City?
Absolutely. So when we're traveling to the UK, it's going to be at the end of October. We're going to do some promotions prior to the November 1st when the Chiefs are playing the Detroit Lions in the UK. And so we are working on 30-second spot. We're looking to partner with the state of Missouri so that we can have advertising spots to play inside of the stadium on game day, the Jumbotron.
So this is not on British television, but it'll be in the stadium there at Wembley Stadium in London.
Absolutely, in the stadium. We'll also be participating in Fan Fest activities, so we'll have promotional materials that we're able to give out about Kansas City, do some photos, really to generate the interest. But very specifically from a marketing side, we'll be sitting down with travel writers and tour operators to talk about the product that we have here and why they should be looking to book Kansas City for those tours, and then write about Kansas City because of all the vibrant, dynamic things that are going on.
For so many of your predecessors, it has all been leading to this notion that what we need in Kansas City is this convention hotel. If this is indeed going to be built, what is the next big project then, as somebody in the shoes now of doing this job, the next big project that Kansas City needs to do to be able to attract visitors and convention goers to Kansas City?
Sure. Well, I never like to limit myself to just one thing. I think there's a lot of projects that Kansas City can continue to look at and advance forward, because product development is what generates interest. One of the big things that we've heard about recently, the airlines have suggested, we need to move forward with a more cost-effective look at doing something at KCI, and it's the suggestion of building a single terminal. So I think that that's what we continue to need to look at and continue to study and advance that forward. I think we need to look at the West Bottoms redevelopment, what's going to happen there, and continue to advance that forward. Personally, having moved from Washington, D.C. and living on the East Coast, the waterfront is prime area for redevelopment. And I think that, in other areas across the country and internationally, waterfront development becomes prime location. So I think there's opportunity there. I think that we have to look at the discussions of advancing for the cultural district. There's been lots of conversations, the Nelson Atkins Museum, UMKC, building that 5-mile radius of a cultural district. Those are all the things that we continue to need to look at to advance Kansas City forward, continue to make us vibrant and attractive to visitors coming from across the globe. And we do have visitors coming from around the globe, and we're able to now interact with them at our new Visitor Engagement Center.
Are there some convention groups who say we won't come to Kansas City because they can't get enough direct flights coming to Kansas City, for instance?
No, we haven't had groups say that they can't get a direct flight. I think that our geographic position right in the center of the country, no matter what side of the coast you're flying from, is no more than a 3.5-hour flight, which if you're flying from the East Coast to the West or the West Coast to the East, you have all-day travel. And I think that our geographic position helps us mitigate that. The other side of it is that we're a very affordable destination, and we've been ranked as affordable places. And so those things, in addition to the hotel, positions Kansas City prime. And that's why the interest, before the shovel has even gone in the ground, has been extremely high.
Okay, thank you so much for being with us. Ronnie Burt is the president and CEO of Visit KC. Our reporter roundtable. Next, you're watching Kansas City Week in Review. Sunday marks the first anniversary of Ferguson, the shooting death of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown by a white police officer in that Missouri town marked violent protests and a national debate over police tactics. But after all the talk, what actually changed in Missouri and in our own backyard 1 year on? To dissect that story and the rest of the week's news, the senior reporter for the Call newspaper, Eric Wesson, from The Pitch, Steve Vokrot, and from the editorial board of the Kansas City Star, Barbara Shelley. I was taking stock of how many bills were filed in the Missouri legislature just this year, all involving Ferguson, and it came to 65. Those measures covering everything from requiring police officers to use body cameras to changes in how police use deadly force. But how many of those 65 became law? Well, one. A bill limiting the percentage of revenue cities can bring from traffic tickets and court fines. 1 year on, why then did so little happen in the state where it all took place? Or is judging change by the number of bills past the wrong yardstick, Eric?
No, it's not. It lets people know that there is something that wants to be done. I just think they didn't put things together the proper way. I think the more that you look at things now with the situation in Cincinnati, you realize that there is a need for body cameras. So I believe the next legislative session we'll see a more push for that. But in Kansas City, it's the making sure that everything is done legitimately. You got storage space for them and the little technical things that they needed to work out.
So no body cameras still in Kansas? Sorry, in Kansas City?
No.
Okay.
No.
So why the big delay there, Steve?
Well, one of the hang-ups, there's been a couple of hang-ups that I've seen. There's one concern about open records laws. So if, a reporter or any member of the public asks to see these, there's a question of, do you verge into voyeurism if, say, a police officer is responding to a domestic violence incident and shows up in a home? Is there a public need or is there a public right to see that kind of video? That's one of them. The other one is there's some concern about cost, but I question how much that holds water. I mean, some of the equipment that police departments use is very costly, and that doesn't seem to be quite as much of an issue. So body cameras, the cost there is maybe quite a bit less.
And to your point about the Missouri General Assembly only passing one Ferguson-related bill, in a way that doesn't really surprise me, because nothing moves very fast in the Missouri General Assembly. And a lot of these issues are kind of urban-dominated issues in a rural-dominated legislature. Also, there's members of the Missouri legislature that are very leery of cameras and anything they see as a violation of privacy. I don't think you'll see that kind of legislation coming out of Missouri. I think you'll see it from at the local level.
Well, last November, after being stung by criticism of inaction, the governor, Jay Nixon, appoints a statewide Ferguson commission charged with an unflinching study, he says, of what happened and actionable recommendations for change. Whatever happened to that? Well, the governor was in Kansas City this week to announce an overhaul of police training in the state.
Clearly, there's been a great deal of attention on the state of Missouri over the last year, and I think that we have an obligation to stand up and lead. I think we have a responsibility to set an example, so we're preparing and prepared to do just that.
I'm not quite clear, though, as to what actually changes as a result of any of this, what the governor is saying there. Eric?
I haven't understood it either. I think that it looks good, it sounds good, but then it goes back to what happened with the Ferguson Commission. I think the general public got more information out of the FBI report than they did anything that the commission in Ferguson did, but it's a good gesture. It extends the olive branch in between the community and the police department to work on some things, and maybe that's something that needs to be done, but I don't see the significance in it.
Barbara?
Well, I think that commission can recommend things like minimum hours of training, certain things you have to learn in training. But, like in a place like Kansas City, I mean, they decide up at the academy make decisions regarding all that. And again, I think that's something, at least in police departments of the size of Kansas City and St. Louis, you'll see them handle that internally. What's
been surprising to me this week is, for all that we've talked about on the Missouri side, and you mentioned that the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department still hasn't moved forward with police cameras, yet in Kansas, the Kansas legislature has now decided to take the issue up, and it's a Republican lawmaker leading the charge.
But it protects law enforcement from frivolous or fraudulent claims of excessive use of force, protects the public in cases where there may have been excessive use of force. I hope we can get something passed and enacted this coming session, which would then be effective July 1 of 2016.
Now, this is a conservative Republican, John Rubin, in Johnson County, calling for police body cameras in Kansas. Now, with all the concerns over budget and taxes in the Sunflower State, why is this now such a big concern, Barbara?
Well, John Rubin is the chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee. He's also a maverick, so, you know, he's interested in things like this. You know, he has said they need to find a way that local cities and counties don't have to pay for this out of pocket and make it an unfunded mandate. And you know, you saw what happened in Olathe the last week or so, where somebody filmed an interaction between a police officer and a citizen, and it looked bad when they put a snippet of it on YouTube, but the police had their body cameras, and you know, in its totality, it was entirely different. So they're looking at things like that.
It would be surprising, though, if Kansas went forward with a statewide mandate for body cameras and Missouri didn't, the epicenter of the Ferguson tragedy.
Yes and no. John Rubin, he's a representative from Shawnee and I believe is a former judge. So he has a pretty good understanding of these jurisprudence and evidence issues. And he led the push actually a couple years ago to open up police records, broaden what's available to the public in criminal investigations through Open Records Act. So he tends to err more on the transparency side than perhaps some of his colleagues in both states.
I think Grandview has those cameras as well. So it is close, but I think Forte's thing was to make sure that all the bases are covered. If you're stopped by a police officer, he leans in to look in your car, and I'm a passenger in there, now I'm on the videotape. Well, do I have an expectation of privacy when I'm riding in somebody's car when the police stops them? Or even if they walk into your house, everybody is now on camera. Do I have a reasonable expectation in my house to be secured? So I think Forte is trying to get those things resolved before they come up with a policy that mandates they should be able to do that.
In other news this week, if you thought the minimum wage had been decided in Kansas City last month when the city council voted to hike pay for low-earning workers to $13 an hour by 2020, think again. Now, there are two dueling proposals that you could be asked to decide at the ballot box in November that could boost pay to $15 an hour or eliminate the wage boost entirely. So how does this work? The new ordinance states that the minimum wage will begin increasing later this month on August 24th to be exact. It would go from $7.65 an hour to $8.50. Will that still go into effect, by the way, Steve?
Well, it's supposed to, but there's a lot of questions about, you know, whether it's even legal, and that's sort of the issue with this minimum wage debate is the backdrop of the state mandate that cities are not supposed to exceed the $7.65 limit. And even as they debated it in Kansas City, there was discussion about, do we even have an enforcement mechanism behind the local ordinance to make sure that that businesses are adhering to this, and the answer seemed to be no.
Because fewer people voted in the last mayoral election, it requires fewer signatures to put this on the ballot now. We could have actually two proposals on the ballot then in November on the minimum wage. What if both passed, Barbara?
Well, that's a good question. This has come up before with, light rail and transit initiatives and things like, what if they both pass? And I have no idea what they would do that. I don't think they do in City Hall either. But, you only need now about 1,700 signatures to get something on the ballot.
The business community is still outraged and raw feeling about this, but have any businesses, is there any evidence that businesses have already left Kansas City as a result of this ordinance passing last month, Eric?
No, there's no evidence of that. This is my understanding of this whole situation. The referendum would put it in place, would come into play to reverse the ordinance. The referendum is being done by the restaurant and hotel owners. So that would reverse the ordinance. On the other side of the coin, they already have a ballot initiative that they can push forward. You can't reverse a ballot initiative. Therefore, it would be in play. So the ballot initiative right now would be the standing term of law. It's my understanding and talking to both sides on how that situation would go. But it's interesting in the conversation as you dig deeper into it.
Right. I'm putting my teeth back in. Yes.
The agreement was that if they passed the $13 an hour, then they wouldn't come with the ballot initiative. Well, the mayor passed the $13 an hour. Here comes the ballot initiative. And neither one of those are going to go on the April ballot when the city is voting on the tax increase. And that's the time that it would be on the ballot.
If it wasn't confusing already, it's becoming increasingly so during this program, Steve.
Right, and that's, you know, and that's part of perhaps the rationale behind the state law on the minimum wage. Because now you're seeing that you have this potential of having these hodgepodge minimum wage issues that aren't really clearly delineated. You know, I think a lot of people tend to say local control is best, and they're probably right, but this is probably an issue that's ripe for a statewide discussion in the next legislative session.
Many of the most familiar names on the Kansas City, Missouri City Council are now gone. 9 new members of the City Council were sworn in over the weekend. This fresh batch taking the reins of city government is far more diverse than the council members they replace. 5 women and 5 African Americans now making up the 13-member council. How will this new bunch of personalities change the way business gets done at City Hall, Barbara?
Well, I think you're going to, from everything I know about this council, I think you're going to see a livelier council. I think you have some members there that have signaled very early on that they don't necessarily think they need to do everything the mayor suggests that they do, and you've already seen some clashes. So I think it's going to be a livelier council.
What's the first order of business, Eric?
I think it's getting ready for the e-tax. Figuring out what to do about the hotel, because there's still people with a little rumble about the incentives for the hotel. I think that'll probably be a conversation as well.
I saw, Steve, that you in the pitch this week were looking at the biggest winners and the losers on this new council. I mean, who came out as the biggest winner?
Probably Scott Wagner. So, you know, one of the ways that mayors can flex their power in Kansas City, Missouri is they make committee assignments, and that's where ordinances get their start, and so those committees influence the direction and the shape that those ordinances ultimately take before they're voted on by the full council. So Scott Wagner got some pretty good assignments, and he's going to be mayor pro tem, and that's kind of like a vice mayor position. And if you see what happened with Cindy Serco, you know, her first term where she was kind of a political cast-off because she didn't get along with Funkhauser, and then becomes mayor pro tem and becomes a very visible member of the council. You can see how that, you know, can increase her profile. Scott Taylor's going to chair the Planning, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee, and that's probably, I've always argued that that's the most powerful position of the city council.
Who was the biggest loser in your look at the new council? Oh,
loser. You know, Catherine Shields didn't get great assignments, and there was one assignment where she got where there's arguably 3 council members who might be a little bit thorny for Mayor Sly James, and because 3 of those 4 members of that committee are on the same committee, they can't meet in public because or else they would create a quorum, and so that might diffuse some of the conversation.
Eric.
There's a lot of conversation about how many of them will be running for mayor for the 4 years. Running a campaign is one thing, but governance is another, policy is another, and getting along with other peoples is another. So I don't know if any of them are going to be coming out of the gate lobbying to run for mayor or put themselves in position to run for mayor.
Yeah, I'm also interested to see about the 2 members who came directly from the state legislature, Jolie Justice and Kevin McManus, how they will adopt to city council, which is really a really different kind of public service.
It will cost you less than your monthly subscription to Netflix. Who compares a tax increase that way? Well, they are in Johnson County, where county commissioners next week vote on the first property tax hike in a decade. The average homeowner would pay about $100 more a year to help fund parks, libraries, and transit service in the county. At a recent public hearing on the issue, a large majority of those testifying spoke in favor of the tax hike. Is that a sign of how commissioners will vote next week?
I get the sense that there's better appetite for passing a tax increase this year than there has been in previous years. There's a recognition that if the county is going to maintain a certain level of service for that community, that there's less money. Well, in some measures there's more money, but they're losing other revenue streams because of decisions that the state legislature is making. And so the reality is kind of setting in that, you know, if we want to maintain what we've got, we need to raise taxes a little. And if we want to create additional programming for parks and libraries, we have to raise it by a little bit more.
But this is a county which voted for Sam Brownback in the governor's race last time around. So, I mean, and votes for tax increases in Johnson County don't have to go before voters at this point in time. So are the county commissioners out of step with the voters of that county, Barbara?
I don't think they are. I don't sense that amongst Johnson County residents there's a great deal of opposition to this tax increase. You know, counties have been hit hard by what's going on with in the Kansas State financial picture. They've lost a lot of their revenue sources, and it's kind of funny because a year ago when they proposed a tax increase in Johnson County, some of the legislators went thundering into the Johnson County Commission meeting and said, "No way, are you going to pass a tax increase?" Well, this year they didn't see them, and it's because maybe they figured out that they haven't done such a great job with their own budget.
But there are some outside groups I saw in an article you wrote this week in The Pitch, Steve, who are now coming forward this week to try and block this from taking place.
Yeah, Americans for Prosperity, which is a political group that's related to the Koch brothers, the Wichita billionaires who advocate stridently for limited government, are trying to get their members to call county commissioners and tell them that, you know, they should maybe surrender some ground on this tax issue. Not atypical. Dave Traubert from he's another anti-tax guy who's also lobbying them as well.
And people are complaining, or we've been getting emails from people that are saying we have a sales tax increase at the grocery store. Now you want to increase our property taxes as well. So now they feel like they're getting taxed to death.
But can I just say, I mean, people do understand that if they want the kind of amenities that they moved to Johnson County for, located in Johnson County for, good schools, parks, libraries, trails, you have to pay for that. It doesn't just happen on its own, and I think they understand that.
Even if it costs about the same cost as a subscription to Netflix per month?
Even then. Right.
Okay, that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers. From the editorial board of the Kansas City Star, Barbara Shelley, thank you. The senior writer for The Call, Eric Wesson, and from The Pitch, reporter Steve Vokrot. I'm Nick Haynes. Remember, you can get another perspective on the Metro's news by joining Mike Shannon and Ruckus Sunday morning at 11:30, right after the rebroadcast of this program, Sunday morning at 11. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.